check out Cajun Lights, your complete dog hunting outfitter. Tracking equipment, leashes, collars, dog supplies, and much, much more. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. And don't forget their outstanding lineup of lights. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. Elite nutrition products are the hottest thing on the market right now for dog and horse owners. And Houndsman XP is a dealer. You can find all their products on our website at houndsmanxp.com. Over the past 5 years, you've tuned into this podcast, and I don't take it lightly. We have built a mutual trust. And when I recommend a product, it's because I believe in it, I use it, and I'm given my seal of approval for that. I'm putting my name on that. And with Elite Nutrition products, I do trust it. I do use it. I've seen great results with their essential dogs, their pre and probiotics, their tick-borne disease treatment. It's all natural. It's a great alternative to pharmaceuticals when used appropriately. If you expect extreme performance, you need Elite Nutrition. Available from houndsmanxp.com.
When you get the great clay and you just don't mess it up, now you've got something. And other guys, it's kind of like how they describe coaches. How do they do with their worst team? Or a falconer, he might not have the great bird now, but he never has a bad one. I think that's the fair judgment versus the superstar at a meet. I caught a guy, I think in Utah's YouTube channel, the algorithm, and this bird is just lights out. And of course, it's iPhone stuff, but it's kind of like my imprint Tearsal Peels. It's a Tearsal Notum. It's one of the superstars, just is. And I'm thinking, why don't I know this guy's name? I mean, this bird's the Sky Trial shit. And I'm like, why don't I? And then and there's not much on his background or anything. This is fine. I'm just watching it. And then I catch him on another video, another Falconers, and it's pretty much like his first long wing. Yeah, the thing's a superstar. Yeah, 51% nature, 49% nurture.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast. And this episode is one that I've been hoping that I'd have a chance to do for years now. Ever since Tim recorded his episode with my former partner, Israel, all those years ago, I thought, man, this is a guy that I would love to have a chance to talk to as well at some point. He's a fellow Indiana guy and is from Terre Haute, and we talk a lot about that, reminisce about some of his memories living there and hawking there and stuff, and him being an art guy and an amazing art guy. For those of you that might remember him, he's the one that did the mural at the wall in the Marshall headquarters, and he's done a lot of really cool stuff over the years with different projects, which we discuss also in this episode. And it was just really fun getting a chance to sit and banter with him for almost 2 hours and just kind of talk about a lot of other philosophical things, as well as just talking about the nerdy stuff too, art, music, and all kinds of great stuff. So I'm glad I had a chance to have this conversation with Tim and get a chance to finally meet him in person and just have a good time. So I hope you enjoy listening. This is another one that's a little bit lengthy, closer to 2 hours, and it was a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoy it, and here we go. Tim, man, it's nice to finally meet you in person.
Fellow Hoosier.
Fellow Hoosier, yes, sir. And as we were talking about earlier, I've actually really been looking forward to doing this with you because I still remember back in, when was it, man? Like 2019, 20-ish or whatever. It was
pre-madness.
Yes, pre-madness. It was right whenever you guys were doing the unveiling or the whatever of the mural that you did for Marshall. The episode that you recorded with Israel back in the day. It's hard to believe it's already been like 6 years.
Yeah, time flies.
It does very much so. And but yeah, I remember listening to that episode, and I actually listened to it again, doing my own little homework, on the way down here. that, because I didn't want to completely and totally repeat a bunch of stuff that you guys had already talked about, in that recording from before. But I figured this would be easy because, once again, we can probably talk, ad nauseum for a little bit and reminisce. At least it's going to be more nostalgia for you. It's still kind of modern day living for me. But yeah, I mean, Indiana resident. And I remember whenever you did the episode, I sent you a message and was like, well, where in Indiana are you from? And you were like, well, Terre Haute. And I'm like 2 hours from me. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, let's continue the train of thought that we were just talking about. We've encountered and, of course, known for a while a lot of the same cats up in Terre Haute and stuff. You were telling me a couple of stories about that, but yeah, so I mean, those were your kind of early days starting off, right?
Well, it was like I call it a near miss accident. So Don Garvin, his sister is Annette Johnson. They had 6, 7 kids, 2 twin boys. Little tough for them at first, so they were held back, and then. They're Catholic, kind of like my family. My mom did the Irish triplets thing. Annette was doing the Irish quintuplets kind of thing. So Greg was born immediately after Danny and Donnie. Don Garvin's their uncle. I'm sure Don was named after. And we would be at St. Margaret Mary's Church, which Don's auto shop was right across the street. So let's go see my uncle. So we go over there, kind of hang out, watch guys rolling tires around, And then finally one day they said, because Don's parents lived close to the church, they said, let's go see my uncle's hawk. And I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, he's got a hawk in his backyard. I'm like, you're kidding me. I think we're like 11. And we played baseball and everything together. So we run over there, and there I see this kind of open shed. Now I know what I was looking at, and it kind of had a perch to a perch thing. And there's this red tail, of course. And it's just sitting there looking at us, and I think it's early spring or late spring. And anyway, I don't remember if I asked questions. I mean, I could hardly put my mind around it. I had a very fuzzy thing about falconry, but really didn't. I'm thinking it got hit by a car, they saved it, and now it's just living there. And not once do those, and I gave them grief about it to this day, not one of those jokers said, well, he takes it out and he hunts it. I would have immediately gone, when is this happening? They don't say anything because, all I can think is, well, my mom would never let me have anything like this, but this is cool. So that's a non-starter. And I'm just looking at the bird, being an artist. Of course, I always say artists are drawn to raptors and sleek animals, just cats, anything that's, horses.
Nature stuff.
Yeah. And, so nothing is said. And years later, when I stumbled into becoming a falconer, I'm having a brain fart. Not Steve, is it Steve? No, Bob Little says, hey, you need to hook up with Don Garvin and Doug Bensinger when you're in Terre Haute with your bird. And I'm like, Don Garvin, that's my buddy's uncle. Oh yeah, he's been a falconer forever. I'm like, that's it. That was his bird. And so I'm out at the bars and see the Johnson brothers. And I'm like, why didn't you? And they're, they just had it was just life to them. We can see falconry stuff and just be zoom in, and, the muggles just walk around like, it doesn't, so it still didn't even occur to them. They're just like, And so I could have been exposed, when most of my buddies are, like Rob Rainey running around 9 and 10 years old with Mitch Wishon raising hell and the Hardy Boys with their hawks. So that could have been me. I would have probably, it'd been knocked down, drag out with my parents are East Coasters. So my dad thought all my interests that way were barbaric, as he put it. So who knows, but things happen for a reason. So that was my near drive-by that I was exposed to it, but had no idea, because I didn't have the concept that anybody would fly it free, see you later. So I just thought it was this backyard mascot. But anyway, so I go to meet, we were talking here. And so he said, maybe save this. So I'll tell about Doug Bensinger. Doug's a fantastic falconer. Ended up giving him one of my peregrines, and he did a fantastic job hunting the strip pits of Indiana with it. And we knew they were challenging, so you had to have a made bird. You wouldn't want to create one on those, long canals and yeah. So I get Doug's number either from Don. Yeah, Don's like, I don't have bird time, call Doug. And so Doug said, meet me at this color tile, closed on Sunday. So, because we're going to hunt the brush behind it in the little open fields. And I have my future wife with me. We joked about, that's when they wanted to go hawking until marriage, and then it's over.
Yeah.
And this guy gets out, and this is 1990. Yeah, 1990. No one had long beards. Unless you're in the Bald Knobbers Jamboree in Branson, Missouri. He's got a beard down the middle of his, stomach, long hair, stocking cap on, kind of dressed, big workman boots and everything, and immediately goes, I don't normally look like this. And of course my mind's going, well, that you worked on that beard a long time. I can talk about it now. Doug was undercover in a motorcycle gang in Illinois that was dealing drugs. So yeah, he was a narc and on deep cover. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was like, you can't breathe a word. Not that I had connections with any of that stuff, but he's in Terre Haute, not Illinois, but we're close. And so, yeah, it was just like, wow, this guy is this, we think of falconry as pretty tough, but yeah, this dude was living the life and in a motorcycle gang and back in those days. Yeah. So anyway, watched this goshawk, and I was around mostly long wingers in Oklahoma at that time, and just watching that goshawk hit that cover on like a red tail and spring back up, pew! And so, yeah. So I couldn't get enough of that when I go back home, all the goshawkers going. So
anyway. Yeah. Well, and there's plenty of Indiana guys that still swear by the goshawks. Doug isn't quite as active as he used to be. It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
A lot of the Terre Haute guys, they still put on a hell of a final meet of the season. The Terre Haute meet is the one that in Indiana where all the falconers still usually look forward to the most. It's usually the last weekend of every hunting season, last Saturday. It's still tradition.
Nice.
Still, you need to come up and hang out again sometime during that.
Unfortunately, my parents passed. My best friend lived right across from Holman Field, the airport, on a farm. Mm-hmm. And there was this strip of unclaimed land. So, it was kind of not enough to have a bunch of coyotes in it. And, it was teeming with rabbits. And so, Jessell, let's fly your bird. And so they'd never been out with anything. We get to the end of the field. The red tail kind of knew what was going on at this point, but I was still, doing singles, no doubles. And she flies right off the fists and takes a perfect perch right at the end of the field in one of the highest trees, turns, faces us. We're with him, a couple other guys, and his cousin, Alan. Alan takes about 3 steps, flushes a rabbit. I told him, rabbit ho, And the rabbit runs out about 40 yards, spots the bird, does a U-turn, comes back and kills it about 10 feet in front of him. This is 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's it. And they're just like, we'd just gotten out of the car, I was like, yeah, I'm at the stage where I can't double. And not that they would be aware of that anything. They were just like, well, which gets to a larger subject when I describe falconry to people. I tell them when it goes right, with a good bird and a good setup and all that stuff and good field craft and everything, it does look like shooting fish in a barrel. When it goes wrong, it looks impossible. So, yeah.
Well, and not only does it look impossible, but it just makes you look like the most incompetent jackass in the entire world, because someone else is just like, okay, well, this isn't going to work anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just here to see how this can go wrong.
Yeah.
And then whenever you see them like validated, it's like one of the most deflating things ever, when your bird just does what that person that's expecting you to fail or whatever is they're being validated. Basically, your bird just takes off, does the thing that you want it to do the absolute least. And
it's never done that before.
Yeah, never. This never happens. This usually doesn't work like this. Yeah. And they're just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And they go home. Well, it's what happened like you'd expect it. It's a bird. Yeah.
And then the next day you go out and performs perfectly, and whatever. Yeah. So yeah, we've all been there. It's the nature of the beast. But yeah, no, and that's so the red. Did you end up doubling with that bird then, or did how did the rest
went on to be a great bird, and she was my last bird before I started doing the long wing thing. I enjoyed my time with red tails, and yeah, she's a great bird. And I had my struggles getting started, just like, well, okay, here's how things go wrong. So in college, I take out about 5. I'd scouted this field. It's like my second red tail, and pretty good one, seemingly, and it's still a little early. And so about 5 of the frat brothers got to go see this, right? Speaking of going home, and yeah. She flies up and, of course, picks an electric pole and the old ceramic. And a resident red tail shows up, kind of comes after her. And so she's kind of adjusting herself. I mean, we hadn't even, and now I'm thinking about, okay, I'm going to get her down from there. So I call her down, and she turns, steps right into and bzzat. And there she, of course, her talon locks, and she's just hanging there. So it's just like, oh. And eventually her talon burned off and she fell. And that was it. And, of course, they're all just looking at this going, yeah. So, yeah, pretty bad.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and unfortunately, I think we've all been present for not just ours, but luckily I've had a bird come close to getting electrocuted on a transformer, but landed just right and then came off of it just right. In that particular instance, didn't end up getting shot.
So no big bang.
No big bang. No smell of burnt feathers or anything afterwards. It was fortunate in that situation, but I've been with other falconers and seen theirs get zapped, and it's it's a pretty somber day after that usually.
My first long wing was a Peregrine Prairie, which it's too bad they're not around like they used to be. They're super reliable. I mean, super reliable. This was, my RB4. No, yeah, I didn't have an MN10 then, the old blue box. Hardly would ever get it out. And really good bird. And of course, they hit the snot out of stuff, which is just awesome. We're flying. She, about 4th year or something, she developed a pole sitting habit, which it's kind of like, to me, the 2 worst vices ever are pole sitting and screaming, because they're both self-reinforced no matter what we do. And I'm about to prove that point, because it's just self-reinforcing. And it just becomes a habit. And it didn't have anything to do with weight. She just take her time, and then take off. So you had about a 5-minute sit. We're duck hawking. She goes down a country road, up on the pole. And I see the transformer. She starts to turn and take off, and I remember seeing a blue flash, because you see it before the sound, and then like 5 shotguns going off at the same time. Kaboom! Oh, and the next thing I know, well, here comes my bird falling out of the sky, right? And she's flying the opposite direction. I'm trying to lure her in, and she's just climbing like a, raped ape. And I'm like, okay. And since she was so reliable, I really wasn't worried about the telemetry thing. This was back when we were flying with one transmitter. She goes up about 500 feet, comes over, and just great flight, just wipes out this mallard. I go running over there. First thing I do, I look at her feet, and I see a little black, but not much. And then as I walk around, she has a complete, like a pine tree cut out of her tail. It's like just a triangle, completely gone. And the transmitter just smoked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I get home, and the breeder was Bert Loisberg. And he's like, oh, Tim, this is the best thing that ever happened. She'll never sit on another pole again. Yeah, man, you were okay, right? Yeah. 3 weeks later, well, Bert, this is the days when falconers were on the phone all day long, pre-internet, and like, well, Bert, not so much. It turns out it was just the wrong pole in her mind. Yeah, so it never, even that, just shows you how faithful they are to superstitious behavior, as we say. They just think, okay, I got to do this.
Yeah, and in the end, whatever's going to happen is going to end up happening, unfortunately. And we can psychoanalyze everything from all these different angles as to why they make the decisions that they did, and why did it veer off that bunny to go fly into that window, and so on and so forth. The list literally just goes on and on and on. What I usually tell people, and I've said this to other people as well, but what I tell people when I'm giving presentations or whatever on falconry and stuff, I say there's literally 1,000,001 ways that things can go wrong. Things are going to happen, whatever. And just when you think you've seen every 1,000,001 way, you're going to find 1,000,002. And
well said.
And so on and so forth. So it's the
longer we're in it, truly that old salty dog of the less we know. When you're in about 10 years, you think, I've got it together. I know all this stuff. And then oh yeah, not right then, but stuff will start, and you'll be just like, the less I know.
Every year that I'm in this, I feel like I know less. It's kind of been, this is year, actually, it's funny you mentioned the number 10. This is actually year 10 for me, and I've never been more affirmed that I know nothing by this point than, I just...
You start asterixing everything.
Yeah.
This is how it should go. But, buddy of mine, Dave Leapy, if we talk nuts and bolts falconry long enough, always he throws down the control is an illusion card.
Oh, yeah.
And I won't mention names, but I'll talk to falconers that you just really get this feeling, you not do this, and this, and it's like, there's so many variables. You just try to kind of keep it in the lane. But stuff just comes down the pike. The big one for me was, I don't know how many years ago now. So I was really into imprints. I still like them, and it's a bad word now. I'm of the age, I just turned 60. So I'm of the age where you went to a meet, a good 40-50% of the long wings and accipiters were imprints for a lot of reasons. Don't have to go into them, but so I'm thinking, well, most of them all fit into this box, and I believe vocalness is a personality trait. I run a boarding kennel. There'll be two dogs from the same family. One is Silent Bob. Same family, maybe even the same breed. Silent Bob and the other one will not shut up. It's a personality thing.
It's Jay.
Yeah. So I figured that out with imprints. Yeah, here's one for you. So the quietest imprints I've had, 2 female peregrines. And the book tells you they're the mouthiest thing ever. Well, the Tiercells are quiet. Blah, blah, blah. Guess what the mouthiest I've ever had? Tiercell Peels. It's not even close.
Yeah.
Worse than hybrid. Just they had something to say about everything, and the female peregrines are Silent Bobs. Go figure. So I'm thinking, besides that, the personality thing and the vocalness, despite doing this kind of same old methods and all that kind of stuff. And so I get this imprint. It's like if you've ever seen the videos of like some chunky little girl, 8 years old in the kitchen and throwing a exorcist fit because mom won't give her any more food. They have that gene where they can't be satiated and they're just crazed. Well, I found that bird. I would tame hack, and I'll admittedly so. By this in the afternoon, if I didn't have much going on, run them out again. It's warm, eating's just kind of, they're puppies. They're just kind of come around you. Well, I get this guy. I can't even wait till the tame hack. He is going ape, SHI*T, and I mean losing it. And I'm not a rube. I mean losing it. And he just could not be satiated. He imprinted so fast on me, and I know how this goes. And I said to the breeder, because if we let our imprints run around outside, you'll have to go find them. They'll go find shade, sit in the corner. They're not dogs. It's not a pure gyr. These are hybrids. Gyrs are very dog-like. They'll go kind of sit, and you kind of got to go find them. All the hybrids I've had, straight peregrines, peregrine prairies, gyr peregrines, blah, blah, blah. And this guy would come finding me like some velociraptor. And I'm like, this is different. Oh, yeah. And he wouldn't get away. I mean, he was just, and I said to the breeder, goes, ooh, he's over imprinting. And I got him at the 18 days, parent raised, never saw a human till me. And he didn't even go through 3 days of the hissing. It was, and yeah. So he was, no matter what, I mean, he was crazy. His brother that Rob Summers flies is one of the best birds I've ever seen. I described him as the 13-year-old with the mustache. First time I saw that bird fly, now we're talking December of its first year. He goes up like 1,200 feet, half a mile away, comes right over. We flush the gadwalls, and I'm wanting baggers. I can't remember what bird I have at the time. And comes down, kills it dead in the air, falls straight down 20 feet in the air. And this is a bird December of its first year on gadwalls. And I was just like, Jiminy Christmas. We get back. Rob's wife, Jean, is from Arkansas. So Tim is 2 syllables. Tim. And yeah, Tim, that bird, October, I don't know. I didn't think it was going to make it past October. Rob didn't want to keep that bird. And I'm like, yeah. And this was this bird's brother. Little bit crazy, but once he got him focused, and my bird, we ended up kind of trying to rehab him. He went loose into a flight chamber for like 2 or 3 months, trying to get him, because he eventually became non-functional. The screaming and the crazy behavior was he was droning I was up to like 800 feet. He's a powerhouse, black, beautiful bird. I named him Duff, which is Scottish for black. Not after the beer and the Simpsons, but probably a better name in that order. And he ended up, and ironically, Rob took him, and we made a deal with it, and he killed the first 3 prairie chickens he saw. And because I said, during the early tame hack, I just said, well, I know one thing. He's a killer. One night at the tame hack, he went up 800 feet and bound to a heron. Glad he didn't hang on to it. And yeah, just that kind of, yeah. And so Rob got all the good crazy in a chamber version of that. But that was a real humbling experience, that, because, cookie cutter imprints, they're all about the same. Yeah. It was, really just a humbling, wow. Yeah. And the control is an illusion. Yeah.
Well, and that was going to be one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because whenever I listened to your last episode that you did 6 years ago, I'm like, I wonder what's changed. I wonder if anything's changed in those 6 years. And I'm like, I'm sure there's been things that's changed in that 6 years. But I remember one of the things that stuck out the most in your episode was you talked about how you're an imprint guy. That's all you want to do. Imprint. That's it for you. Imprints. You like imprinting, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder if he still likes imprinting.
Yeah. So interesting experiment for anybody listening. These aren't tales out of school. I flew 5 tiercel peels. 2 pretty good, sometimes a good day. And I don't want to sound like the pitch snob, but you know, I've been doing this a long time. I've killed lots of ducks. I remember early in my falconry career saying to Mark Waller, who was my sponsor, because I'm seeing that ducks was a lot of fun and it wasn't as hairy and tough as hawk and prairie chickens. And, you know, just getting a flight by the skin of your teeth, it's 10 minutes before dark, and just the red tails and the flight ends up 2 miles away. And I'm thinking, this duck hawking is pretty good. And I'm like, why? You know, why? And he goes, ask that question again when you've killed 300 ducks. So my point is, killing ducks from, 300 feet, and it's just not I've just seen it too much. Everyone can do the falconry they want. I'm just not. So a bird that will, for me, would do 500 feet on a red letter day, I'm just kind of, and form follows function. I'm hawking ducks, chickens, unfortunately, local, or it's a thing of the past. So it's what we've got. So it's challenging to keep them, from having too much carnal knowledge, as they say, because they know they can kill them. So the peregrine, I just know all the tricks in the trade I would try. And one of them was just hated ducks. He just hated ducks, no matter what. The last flight, I've got 5 ringnecks on a pond as big as this kitchen table. And that bird was a high-flying bird until it was really sad watching it, because I knew he didn't like ducks. And yet this is life here. And so we just had to slog. And as more and more he didn't want to do it, the less and less he wanted to fly. We were just on a convergent path. And I had to do my diligence, and he had to do in his mind what, so the enthusiasm was just lacking. So he was about 400 feet over that pond that day. And this was a bird, he'd go 9,000 feet. Not 9,000, 9 to 1,000 feet on a good day when he's first going. And he just flew right over him, just watched him fly off. Ringnecks, the poster child. And, and called the breeder and said, this is just it's not gonna work. And I'd given him a long time. And, so he was a chamber bird. The 2 okay birds were chamber birds. Again, all my normal tricks, shaping, everything to get really good pitch out of them. It just really mixed bag. I go back to Ed Pitcher talking about hybrids and jeers being trick learners. And I think he's right. They're much more malleable. I know many birds who killed a ton of quarry from low pitches. And when the kite started to come in, pre-drone, kites were great. There's a lot of pluses for them. One of them is they don't cut your bird's feet off. Yeah, how about that? And of course in Oklahoma we get a kite up like every day. Anyway, heck, what was my point? All the pitch tricks.
Yeah,
and then these 2 imprint tiercel peels. One was like the Hector bird, Rob Summers, mustache his first year. I remember calling back Dave Knutson, who was his breeder, Mr. Peels himself. And I was like, well, he didn't kill a duck, but he remounted 1,000 feet. I mean, this is legit. Pre-GPS, so I don't have the visual record, but he was, And I was amazed. And again, if you've been around, jeers, remounting isn't their strength. Typically, they this is over. And peregrines, that's a great thing about a good peregrine. So in hindsight, and of course you get a lot of, it's like we've gone through this phase where everyone loved peregrines and the hybrids were like, now it seems like the pendulum, it's all this hybrid love and people complain about peregrines. But I keep saying this, they're dogmatic in a good way. They don't try to outthink you. And I'm talking about the good ones. They just stick to what they do. So, I would make Dave mad because I would not hawk chickens with them. And they were good size birds, really good size. Bolt was 26 ounces, stout, imprint, and just voracious appetite. And they were a furnace compared to like a hybrid, how much food you could pour through them. And I get why the ancient falconers liked peregrines over gyrs. They could feed them. Gyrs can turn into a prairie falcon on you if they want. They can turn that switch. Peregrines, it's and it folds into falconry perfectly. Everybody wins. They want to hunt, And so despite me and duck hawking, I just kept going high. And it was just, and of course, how this goes, those were my first two. So that's how they all fly, right? Yeah. And I was like, why didn't I do this earlier? This is and I'm on a trip in Nebraska and I've got Spike, my old big hybrid. And Dave's calling me, have you flown bolt on chickens yet or blue? And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. It's too risky. I love the duck hawking so much. I've got this tool for that. They're my duck hawks. And I know what I've got and it's fantastic. It's not worth it. Yeah, because he wanted to see one of his tersal peels on a chicken. It might not have been easy, but they might have done it. But anyway, so it's almost like I couldn't stop them from just doing what they. Has Mitch talked to you today? Have you talked to Mitch yet?
No.
Yeah. So when Mitch and I would go pheasant hawking, Mitch saw both of them fly. We called ourselves the Oklahoma Tersal Peregrine Club, and we switched who was an officer that day or not. And he had Clyde, Thunderbird, kind of not a minigrade really. And sorry, hit the table. I got the look. Clyde was that mysterious peregrine. We didn't know if he was going to go 300 feet or 900 or more. And we just couldn't figure it out. And my birds, these imprints just kept getting more and more consistent. And I get it. It kind of wore Mitch out a little bit watching this. It just danged him, You just look at him go. And
yeah, it's easy to kind of all of a sudden, especially when you don't have any other frame of reference or, like especially a falconer that's really early in their career. Like they end up, and I've had this debate many times with other falconers, like, is it more of a blessing or a curse to have a really good first couple of birds for earlier in your career? Because then you think, well, that's going to be the norm for you, right? Like, basically, like if I do all these things, then this is going to be the result every time. And you start learning real quick that just because you put in the work and you ended up with a couple of birds that were super with the program, your first couple, doesn't mean that they're all going
to. No cookie cutter. Yeah.
No. It doesn't matter what species it is either.
Yeah. Right.
It's not exclusive. It's literally any bird in falconry can just because you end up with a good red tail for your first bird and then a good Harris after and whatever, and you do well with your first few birds, any species, doesn't mean that there can't be just well, for lack of better terms, a shit streak that happens for a while after that.
Yeah, right. You get in a rut, either good or bad.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a kennel conversation. Young college girls coming to me with their dog, and they are dying to hear what I have to say. And I'm cordial. I like to talk, and I observe. Kennel work is not the most glamorous, so I like observing the animals and seeing thousands of dogs and observing what goes on. And they'll come in and they'll have a really good one, and I'll say, and I know the face I'm going to get. Well, do you want the good news or the bad news? And they just sink. I guess the bad news first. And I say, well, let me just put it to you this way. You've got a fantastic dog. I do? Oh, yeah. Because they have no frame of reference. And it's kind of their kid at this point. They're 20, old enough to kind of maybe start having kids. So it's their child. And I'll say, what's the bad news? And then I'll say, well, this might be the best dog you ever have. Oh, I never thought about it that way. And I said, yeah, deal with animals. Yeah, because this dog's a peach. And because I'm absolutely 51% nature, 49% nurture. we can ruin things. We all know that. Look at people.
Yeah.
You can ruin, but then there's too many people that come from the worst circumstances.
End up being just beautiful human beings.
Yes. Yeah. Despite.
Right.
And it's not that they're oblivious to what's around them. They just keep plowing through. I mean, we've all, imagine falconers talking about each other behind their back. Well, that bird's despite him.
Every falconer.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah. So we all know it, despite like that bird's. Like Rob in this Hector, he's a superstar. Rob has not ruined it. He's been real careful, but at the same time, and I'll say this to Rob's face, I've known too many Spaniards from Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Rob, I've known endless. I've known 30 years of your birds. Hector's the dude. It's just, when you get the great clay and you just don't mess it up, now you've got something. And other guys, it's kind of like how they describe coaches. How do they do with their worst team? Or a falconer, he might not have the great bird now, but he never has a bad one. I think that's the fair judgment versus the superstar at a meet. I caught a guy, I think in Utah's YouTube channel, the algorithm, and this bird is just lights out. And of course it's iPhone stuff, but it's kind of like my imprint Tiercel peels. It's a Tiercel Notum, one of the superstars, just is. And I'm thinking, why don't I know this guy's name? I mean, this bird's the Sky Trial shit. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why don't I? And then and there's not much on his background or anything on this. Is fine. I'm just watching it. And then I catch him on another video, another falconer's, and it's pretty much like his first long wing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The thing's a superstar.
Yeah.
Yeah. 51% nature, 49% nurture.
Yeah. And there's plenty of birds where I think that are good in spite of us sometimes also.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And then there's also birds that should be champions sometimes, and then they end up with people that either just don't hawk them enough or, get their full potential out of them too. And sometimes you end up with, seeing birds that you think have all the traits to be a really great bird, but then they're also just kind of average because they're not being, even in just 10 years, I've seen a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, in your few decades, you've seen even obviously way more instances of all that, I'm sure. But yeah, all we can hope for is that we have more good experiences than bad.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like the difference between the golfers that keep going and the golfers that quit.
Yeah.
I get, the good outweighs the bad. That'll keep you going. Yeah. But we've all got the pitfalls. I just, I didn't come from a hunting background like I described with my parents, East Coasters and all that kind of stuff. Mark Waller, gets a hold of me and he starts quizzing me, and it's like, most of these falconers come from, and then I had some bad luck. I was a classic case. No, this isn't going to work out for this guy. And I didn't even know hardly my bird species, any of that stuff. But just kept pushing through till it finally went my way. So
yeah, well, and there are some guys too that just I have the debate. I have the debate personally with myself all the time, basically, on as to whether or not I almost wish I'd had more adversity early on, because I would have been able to appreciate the good first few birds that I had. Because whenever all you have is good, you don't appreciate just what it's like to have to struggle initially. And so I go back and forth with that a lot. But not that I regret anything that I've really done so far per se, but it's all about perspective, and everybody's going to end up with different ones.
So parallels to life and sport. And I make all these analogies to the college kids I'm teaching. I talk about music and sports. I try to bring in all these analogies all the time.
Sure.
And boy, in sports, so baseball is a very humbling game. Football can be too, but it's a little different. And you watch that kid who's like my son to a larger degree, me to a lesser degree. I wasn't quite as small. My son was just small. He had undiagnosed celiac till he was 13, and his main symptom was growth. So we ended up playing on travel teams, and it just kind of worked out that way. It's not that he was some stud or anything. He actually played a year up in many years. Anyway, he had a lot of challenges. And I knew I just had to keep pushing him on his back with both hands, as I kept saying. And I was tough on him because I'm not the wise old sage. I'm more of the Marine sergeant. Come on, because that's how coaches were when I was. So, I'm a product of that. But anyway, I knew if he just kept at it. And, I knew the superstars that were around him when he was 11. And not to go off too much of a tangent, but if you don't think steroids mattered in baseball, you don't watch the Little League World Series. There's kids on that field, quote, on steroids, AKA puberty. And there's kids that their voice hasn't even changed and watch the game. The dude's the pitcher. He's practically stepping off the mound and reaching in and putting it in the catcher's glove because he's so much bigger and stronger than the other kids. Steroids into the game. Rarely do those studs at 12 become the dude because it's too much of a humbling game. And by the time they're 15 and 16 and my son is catching up, the parents are like, oh, he's catching up. My son's not the superstar. What happened? And then the really sad cases, they can hardly deal with it. 17, their son's not even starting on the high school team anymore because he's not. But it's almost not his fault. He started off his falconry, went great at first. Everything's good. I'm the man. And he didn't have that early adversity that just was ingrained, like the failure. All athletes accomplish, and I'm this way myself. My kids know my failure stories more than of course, they know them a little bit. We all like to run our mouth how great we were. But they know my failure stories because I learned more lasting lessons out of that. God teaches us joy through suffering, unfortunately, and also knowledge. And so, I went through bad stuff early on in my falconry and right away. And so it made me so appreciate it when it went right versus, the guy, it's not always common, but the guy, the first good bird, and it's just lights out and, mine doesn't stink, and it's so just true with life. And I just watch these kids that had it all and then they don't handle it going away well. And you see it in the pros because they still don't know who's really going to make it. I mean, look at the draft, look at the Heisman Trophy winners that don't make it.
A lot of them.
A lot of them. Oh, especially a quarterback. You think I can't miss. They're 6'4", they're studs. And all of a sudden they get to the pro game and now everyone's, quote, got puberty and everyone's pretty good. And all of a sudden now it's different stuff, but they didn't have the stuff to fall back on and they fall apart like Ryan Leaf because he was Ryan Leaf all the way up until he wasn't.
Right.
And he turns to drugs to try to self-medicate because he wasn't used to failure. Meanwhile, give me that kid who was only 5'8" his sophomore year in high school. And all of a sudden, by his junior year, he's 6'2". And he ends up going to a JUCO. Josh Allen, only school who would even look at him was Wyoming. He was this kind of late developing kid. And for some reason, he just kind of slipped past. And he carries that.
Yeah. Well, and in fairness, too, Josh Allen took him, 4 or 5, somewhere between 3 to 5 seasons to really start coming on also.
Yeah.
But, everybody, and once again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. It might have actually been a good thing for him. But, I look back on, all that kind of stuff. And the falconry, it just kind of, I wasn't going to quit. And I had every reason to this is nuts, I remember this day. So one of my best hybrids ever got wild hair,
And he's like, again, the stuff you don't see coming. I served him a couple times from the kite. And instead of staying around, he had no patience and he would take off. And I'm driving along a highway and I look out, and this is pre-GPS, and I see the beep, and I'm pointing out the window. There he is in this middle of a lake, wingtip to wingtip, chasing birds across the lake. He would never slow down. He, instead of like the searching mode, and then eventually I will land in a tree, a barn, pole, unfortunately, he'd just go. So I had to cut him off every time. So it was 20 miles every time. And I mean over and over and over again. And one time he took me through this, what I call hillbilly country. I'm out of the plains. I'm in these bottoms, and there's this guy in coveralls. I can see the steam coming off of his coffee. And he's outside of his pickup truck. He's got a big old belly. He's got his rifle sitting there, and he's just hand in pocket, just enjoying the morning. And I'm going by 90 to nothing. And I'm like, why can't I be that guy? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I remember you mentioning something to that extent, in the previous conversation that you had. But I'm, and as far as like, I think that, and I'm glad that you're willing to share, about the early struggles and stuff, because I know we all know plenty of falconers, being in this for a while, that have had it both ways, and even some kind of split down the middle, and everybody. I mean, persistence is perseverance, like you said. I mean, the people that are going to stick with it, it doesn't matter if they're successful or not. I mean, the people that are going to stick with it are the ones that are going to stick with it, and I'm sure that you've seen plenty of that as well. I mean, I've seen people that actually have done well, but they started young, and then everything else went on the back burner for a while because they were still teenagers or whatever, but they're not really active anymore because of whatever. And I've seen plenty of people that early struggles, hell with this. It's just it's weighing too much on me emotionally. I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason. But I mean, the people that are going to stick with it long term, it's almost kind of like a pre-written thing. Almost,
yeah, right. Which I have two sayings about falconry. One of them is falconers are born and not made, because they come from such, as we all know, go to a meet, diverse backgrounds. Just when you think, oh, they're these kind of people, here comes this kind of people. Mm-hmm. And the second one is falconry reminds me there's still a little magic left in the world. It's not much, but that's how I feel about it. But yeah. So let me ask you this: the internet. Mm-hmm. I wonder if the ease of the internet, because in my day you had to almost self-vet yourself, because it wasn't easy to find somebody.
Sure.
Took a lot of effort.
Process weeded out people naturally in and of itself.
Yeah, and so now it's so quick. Put a message on a Facebook group.
So I think to piggyback off of what you're getting at is, I mean, does the internet and the easy access to information and people now, increase just the amount of people that get into it and then don't stick with it just because you're going to have a larger amount. But then, I think to piggyback off of that question, answering almost like a question with a question, is what's the majority of the people's sentiment as to what makes falconry and a good falconer also. And unfortunately, there's also a lot of change now with all the different types of people that are getting into the sport. You're starting to see more people that are, unfortunately, I think, less about the actual hunting aspect of it. You start seeing a lot of that too. So I guess to almost answer your question with another question, what's the still the overwhelming acceptance of what the standard of what is falconry, now also. I still think that the majority of the people still consider it, you're not doing falconry or practicing falconry unless you're actually hunting and pursuing wild quarry. But I think you almost have to be blind to a degree, or kind of forcefully or willfully ignorant to a degree, to also not see that there's a lot of people coming into the sport that aren't quite maintaining that standard of hunting their birds as much as when they, and this is just an observation that I personally made.
Yeah. Not to run down our UK brothers, but you can just kind of get a bird there. And I feel like that's a little bit more element in there, but of course they've got, top shelf falconers, versus, 30 years ago in the United States, it was, you're either kind of doing it, and falconers have all known to, hey, keep the hunting, that's the touchstone. And if we're not doing that, then we're not doing it right.
Right.
But
yeah. And so I guess, once again, it's kind of hard to, everybody's perspective and what they view as adequate, falconry is going to differ from person to person, and I mean, there's some people that think that you're not doing what you need to do unless you're hunting almost every day. There's some people that, there's some people that, like myself, I'm good if I get 3 to 4 days in a week. That's my personal standard. And then there's other people that think you're okay as long as you're just giving it a college try at all, and
on
whatever.
Saturday. Yeah.
So I guess it really all depends on, are there more washouts, or are there more people getting in and then quitting, or whatever? Or I think it's just largely dependent on what in the shifting generational viewpoint of what we're doing is, I guess,
big picture stuff, form follows function. So, I'm a psychotic Dallas Cowboy fan, so I'll make the Emmitt Smith reference when he talked about his mental ability and his physical ability are two elevators in a building. And his mental and veteran savviness was an elevator going up as he entered the league. And because a human male peaks physically at 28. And of course the NFL will say something about that, it's rough. And then the physical is an elevator starting at the top of the building going down. And he said the magic years, which he had, those 3 or 4 years where the two elevators are kind of inside of each other. And then you're doing the mental stuff to make up for a little bit of the physical dropping, and then eventually it can't make up for it. So with falconry, I'm old enough to see, captive breeding was just really getting going by the time I came onto the scene. Getting permission was pretty easy. I don't know, because I was young and handsome then. I'd rarely ever got turned down. And now I think it's almost inverse.
Yeah, it's very tough.
Yeah. And so, and people predicted this coming, we're going to have all the birds we want or have access to. And then the environment, the hunting opportunities, the other part of this equation is the elevator that's going down.
Yeah.
And so these two elevators, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but we all see it. I mean, I've seen it. I mean, what we've lost in Oklahoma compared to when I started. There's little blips, but there's overall trends, and again, not to be Debbie Downer, but at least where I am, the 3 falconers that we hunt and talk, we've all said last year was the worst duck season we've ever seen. And there's a lot of factors in play. It was the worst. It was terrible. And I'm not sure that was a report every way, but in our world, it was terrible. So anyway, that just put a crimp into things. But I just feel like, I wish I could say, the golden age is still out there, but I don't think so. So,
yeah, I mean, not unless we can go back in time and completely reverse the.
Yeah. So that's where we are, I think, with these young people. You can tell me if I'm all wet or not. I've done the NAFA things, the meets, all that kind of stuff, did all those younger age. Now I'm older, I have less time kind of with a bunch of things going on. So I don't go to the meets a bunch, and I hear, a lot of the young people are drinking till 2 and 3 in the morning, and they have these clicks and maybe, and we were all in bed early because we were going hunting the next morning. I mean, getting out, seeing everything we could. I've heard people say, yeah, they just kind of, it's this, but I wonder again, is that because it's not as abundant where they are, what it used to be. And so they're not used to that because, I mean, when you have opportunity, it's go, go, go. Take advantage of all these opportunities. And when they're limited, okay, I pick the best days to go hunting now. I do other things at home to condition my bird. All this, again, form follows function intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of the, anytime anybody attends a NAFA meet, for example, there's a huge social aspect to it. And
as it should be.
Yeah, and, there's a lot of the younger people, too, that will still stay up and socialize and drink till 2 or 3 in the morning, but then they'll also still get back out in the field the next day too.
Tougher than me.
Yeah. All that being said, it's there are also a lot of people that just attend the meets to don't worry about even bringing the bird, hang it up for the week, and then go back to hunting when they get home. Also, I mean, there's been plenty of meets that I've attended where I didn't even bother. I didn't want to compete with 200 other falconers, literally in the same however many mile radius and stuff. I mean, this last NAFA meet was the first one of the couple that I've attended that I actually brought a bird just because it was the right circumstance. I had the time to be able to allot to it, even though I actually was a little bit busier this past meet doing other stuff. But at the same time, I think that once again, whenever you have a chance to, a lot of people I think are also focused on getting a chance to see other people do falconry that they normally don't get to see, and they want to see more stuff also than going and hawking rabbits each day that they could do back home. They would rather just go ahead and dedicate that meet time, not just the social aspect of the after hours stuff too, but also seeing other stuff they wouldn't ever get to see where they live also. So I don't know. I mean, there's definitely still a lot of people that, that attend and don't hunt and stuff, and it is what it is. But probably a poor example for me to bring that up if you're having a really deep discussion about our sport and what's going on, because the NAFA, there's so many variables, and like you said, and every one of them's valid, and it's not a dumb decision not to bring a bird. Yeah, no, I mean, I am on the record multiple times of saying, look, I to be honest, I have more fun at meets if I don't bring a bird. Yeah. I mean, personally. Yeah. I hunt leading up to it. I hunt after, and it is what it is. I don't, it's 1 week. Or in my case, the times that I have gone, there's been times where I've only come for a couple of days and stuff too. I want to bring up a tangent about my mother-in-law. She's deceased. She was great, and she and Reagan my wife would go out with me in the bird, believe it or not, and it blows my mind to even think about it now. But her out of the mouth of babes and perspective. So if falconry would come up when she started to want to kind of talk to me about me to her friends, she was in the advertising community in Tulsa, so they knew me as an illustrator and all that. Well, do you know Tim does falconry? And she would say, "Oh, they're dedicated," and and of course, the Johnny Carson, how dedicated are they? And she'd say, "I tell you how dedicated they are." This is, dating myself because now it varies, but she goes, "Oh, their national meet is over Thanksgiving," and they would look, they go, "Thanksgiving?" Mm-hmm. She goes, "Yes, that's how." And then I would chime in, "Yeah, I've eaten Thanksgiving dinner in a grocery store parking lot if they had a hot counter or anything." And I'd go in and, and that's the kind of fun stuff. And you're kind of like, yeah, this is crazy falconry stuff. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And she was right to bring up that example. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's a lot of people that don't realize all the extra little quirks that we kind of deal with, whether it's meets or whatever the case is, but, scheduling, weird issues, all that kind of stuff. But before we start to wrap this up, I do kind of want to get a little nerdy here. Yeah. Because, as I'm sure I can't remember if we've ever had the conversation or not, or if that was part of one of the initial messages that I sent you back in the day. Also, I'm a huge original art guy. I've collected original art, of various sources for years and years and years. And I do have to ask though, just piggybacking off of your last conversation from all those years ago, have you been approached by any other major franchises that you then did not since you're
the Harry Potter thing?
since then that you were able to capitalize on, or have you had any more sad stories since then?
Oh, the irony. I just 2 weeks ago finished a Harry Potter piece for Warner Brothers. It's licensing stuff, selling prints. Yeah. So it came back around.
Full circle.
And I've done multiple things. And matter of fact, this art group hired me back or came back to me. And I was doing kind of nameless stuff for them on purpose. I'm not going to go into why, not that it's any sordid deal, but the stuff I did for them was selling so well that they've said, we want you to do Harry Potter stuff under your name, and yeah. And occasionally, of course, I'll tell them the whole background stuff. But that bespeaks also the trends of what the internet's done, publishing. There's, at that time when that big fish got away, and for those, yeah, he's talking about, it came down to me and another illustrator for all the Harry Potter covers in the United States when it first came. I ended up getting another series from the same publisher that was 35 books. So I may have been more famous, but I made a heck of a lot more money on the other, weirdly enough. And at the time, people, and rightly so, something else will come along. I mean, there was Jason and the Olympiads and the series of unfortunate events. So there were a lot of friends, and you look around now, I mean, that's why we have 17 Willy Wonka movies. I mean, it's just, they're recycling the old stuff because nothing's really.
People can't be original anymore.
Yeah.
And can't think of new stuff.
Yeah. And I'm a reflection of the biz. The advertising, the cold, hard advertising that would pay really well, print-wise, just, of course, went away. When, Newsweek folds shop, it's going away. No reflection on me. And then kids still read books, the tactile, reading a book. And so all of a sudden my work became almost all publishing. And eventually, the iPad eats that up and you can see the trends and still do that stuff, but it's just not. It's just the inevitable's happening. It's gobbling up, all that kind of stuff. So meanwhile, while they were right to say, yes, something else will come along, nothing. As you look back, that was the last major line around bookstores. I don't know how we'd ever see it again. It's for multiple reasons. So. Yeah. But again, I'm doing Harry Potter stuff through licensing stuff, and it's all very movie driven. I want to bring certain stuff to it, but Warner Brothers, it's not canon to our movies. So that's kind of can be a little bit frustrating, but I get it from their standpoint. And of course, I get it from mine too. So, and then pretty soon I'm going to start on a Superman one for, so that'll be fun. And yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and as far as the Harry Potter in particular goes, I mean, hell, they're getting ready to basically reboot it and make it a series and all that stuff too. And I mean, once again, redoing something that's already been done.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the controversy that goes with it. Yeah. It's just, yeah.
What was, I'm out of curiosity, I don't remember this being covered, in your last conversation, and I know I've never heard mention of it per se or whatever. I mean, what was your initial, aside from, of course, wanting to draw falconry related stuff and everything else, I mean, what particular comics or anything, like any kind of franchises were you a fan of as a kid, if any, and all that kind of stuff that kind of got you maybe drawing initially or anything like that? I mean, what was kind of the...
we went to my older cousin's house when I was a kid. I don't know. I don't remember asking for comic books when I was a little kid, but we went to our older cousins and they had a box in his closet and there were some old DC comics in there. And oh my, I'm like 7. And I remember Kid Flash was on one of them. I loved that he had his hair coming out of the top of his outfit. And so I was obsessed with superhero comics then. And they taught me anatomy because you see the muscles and of course it's exaggerated, but that's the point because it's exaggerated. You see it in the forced perspective and, the dynamism of everything. And then my dad was happy because my dad, the college professor, he knew they were written at a college vocabulary level. And, because they knew they had 28-year-old nerds reading the comic books. And so they didn't write them for, 5-year-olds. Well, of course, Wendy the Witch and Casper, that's a different kind of thing. But the superhero stuff, Green Arrow, Green Lantern. I remember the first, because he had one in there and it was political at the time. Green Arrow was kind of, yeah.
DC was always a little bit more of the adult, and Marvel was a little bit more of the that kind of the kid,
Yeah. And also, but anyway, so that really, I give it all the credit. I didn't realize they were inking with brushes, so I would sit there and hand draw the brush marks. How they would shade muscles. Again, form follows function. They shaded that way because they were dealing with a brush. They weren't cross-hatching, with a tiny, because it was quicker. Anyway, so I credit comic books as teaching me the human figure and how to draw faces and all that kind of stuff because there it was, and it's copying all that kind of stuff. And credit that a lot for inspiration.
So, a lot of the stuff that you're doing now, especially for like the movies and things like that, are you doing still more actual, like legit drawing, painting, or is it mostly just digital art at this point?
Well, that's I've been solidly digital since 2001.
Okay, so yeah, all right.
Long time. There's no one coming to me that really makes, even the art houses are like, digital's fine because we're selling the prints.
Sure.
It is a little, I get it. There's a little bit of negativity, the fact that it's not a physical piece of art. And, but there's just so many advantages I've got doing it digitally. And of course the big one is the undo button. It doesn't make you, it's still, as I tell my design class, graphic design, because they're learning Photoshop and Illustrator, and here's the irony. I design logos in Illustrator and I draw in Photoshop. It's weird. I don't illustrate in Illustrator. Yeah. It's too weird. But it's still the archer and not the arrow. Now, of course, AI, that's
going to be my next question.
Oh, dear Lord. It's just like, just when you think the dragon of the internet just ate up the landscape, AI, I see it like the movie Never Ending Story, the nothing. It's everything and nothing at the same time. And here it comes. And smarter people than me can probably debate, but right now I see it as attacking every creative endeavor there is.
You
don't need a bass player, you don't need a drummer anymore, me.
Yep.
Make that bass player play in the style of John Paul Jones.
Literally type in a sentence and you can get a full song with lyrics. Just tell them what you want the song to be about, man. Yeah. And
it's not getting worse because as we give it feedback, it's getting better. I've seen what it's done with the art, and because they fed art into it to start with. It's a very cynical process, but it's just coming for everything. Pretty soon. Already the videos, we can spot it. I'm sure you can spot it. There's hilarious, there's a Facebook group we have on Facebook, and Mark Waller posted a video of a woman by a pond, and she's got a puppy. And it's just, where is this going? And something like a gator or something comes up and grabs the puppy from the shore, brings it out into the water, and it's this hilarious fight between this golden retriever puppy and this gator. And here comes an eagle, comes in, and it's super realistic, grabs the retriever out of the jaws and flies and drops it to the woman who's, yay, and I said, there's a 72-year-old woman on Facebook right now going, oh, the puppy was saved, and we, of course, spot it not only by content, but you could everything's a little too plasticky and a little smooth, but the anatomy on the eagle was still really good. Mm-hmm. It can, matter of fact, Oscar Pack, rest his soul, he passed away, Oklahoma Falconer. The Lord of the Ring people, they found somehow through the network he had a golden. And they came to his house and did the scans on his eagle. So the eagles, when they pluck,
Frodo and Sam off
those are. Oh no!
Or was that a different scene?
Those are pretty good. I think it was I think they used his stuff. They weren't quite satisfied, so they used his eagles for the Hobbit.
Okay.
Because they showed up in the Hobbit.
Right.
I think I have that right. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Probably in the third one, like the Battle of the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's when they scanned his eagle. So there was a weird Oklahoma connection all the way from, Australia. Good old Oscar. We miss Oscar, good guy. But yeah. So yeah, AI is, I mean, a good falconer is going to be able to eventually type in the code and say, no, this angle, and the quarry's going to behave like this. And yeah, it's, there's just no end in sight. It's, and we've all seen The Matrix and the Terminator, so we all know where this is going to end. Make me a battery. I don't want to wake up.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah. The rebel forces will be out there fighting in their, yeah.
Eventually our hardest decisions, whether they're going to be the red pill or blue pill, probably eventually. But
is anybody putting out AI podcasts? They gotta be.
Well, yeah. Well, not only I'm sure they're putting out AI podcasts, but AI is, I still can't trust. I'm still very OCD about editing my stuff and doing all of my stuff, because I know I can't. I'm not okay with technology enough yet that I can just dump my stuff in and then trust it's going to be edited and come out the way that I want it. But there's already plenty of AI algorithms and programs that I could dump my episodes in, and it'll clear out whatever it would probably cut my editing down to basically nothing.
Yeah.
But I still can't trust it yet. And I'm still kind of like, I just can't go there yet.
Well, here we go. They're going to have Ronald Stevens interview King Frederick on a podcast. And they're going to, if anybody's scanning King Frederick's writings and Ronald Stevens, is it Ronald? Modern author of Modern Falconry. Am I having a brain moment? I can picture him, the Irish falconer. I think it's Ronald Stevens, but he wrote Modern Falconry. But anyway, I could see someone, if that stuff's ever been scanned in or Google's aware of it, you could sit there and have a running debate with what, King Frederick's, treatise on falconry that every falconer eventually kind of refers to. I mean, that would be cool. Of course, just like anything, technology can be used for stuff we approve of, and of course, stuff we don't. But yeah.
So we'll talk more off once we stop. I actually had a recent long conversation about a friend and a long conversation with a mutual falconer and good friend about this very topic, about a project that's actually kind of in the works right now a little bit. And I don't really know what I can divulge and what I can of that yet. So we'll talk about that more after the recording stops. But I have some fairly strong opinions on this right now. But I mean, as far as not just podcasts, but to answer your question, yes, there has to be, and I don't know which ones in particular, but yes, I mean, all they have to do is take the modeling. You pump in anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour of someone's recorded voice. All you have to do is do that twice, 2 different people, and I'm sure you can just say, make a podcast conversation of these 2 people, and then voila, there you're gonna
and then
boom, you're gonna have it,
and add the video later.
And
because like San Diego Comic-Con's going on right now, so you could have William Shatner and say Leonard Nimoy. Okay, I'm gonna have them have a podcast, and let's have them tangle a little bit about the friction they had.
Sure.
And and there's all that writing, all the materials out there.
I know for a fact that stuff like that already exists.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm not just in that realm too, but music. Once again, going back to that example, literally, like you said, you can say, make me a metal song about, in the style of this band about this topic. And literally, they'll spit you out in minutes a song, fully written, fully composed, and it'll sound legit. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think there's a band on. You watch Rick Beato on YouTube.
I've met Rick Beato.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
he big YouTuber. He will go over Spotify every once in a while, and there's a band on there right now that's near the top, and
it's artificial.
Yeah, it smacks of it, but they hadn't officially admitted. And and it's,
there are bands that they've already manufactured, and the same thing with AI. And we'll go ahead and just say the letters OF, models and things. There's actually guys that have put out artificial. Basically made themselves into very attractive females and made accounts and accrued lots of money by basically making themselves into these very attractive women and things like that too. Like you said, we could go on and on for hours about the possibilities being endless about, and what it amounts to is, unfortunately, as the algorithms continue to improve and everything, they are going to start being able to get the more human-esque nuances down, unfortunately, that do make, that they'll be able to start putting in those little flubs and stuff that you would normally be able to listen or see, in certain things, and that you can tell it's human.
Be it a dial.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to, you make the argument that's going to make falconry that much more falconry, the human go wrong element, and the computer world can't affect it in a sense other than the activity. I mean, certainly the activity. And that's when we were picking, the family's talking about a business that to make up for the lack of print anymore, I had something that the internet couldn't affect, real. And I think, when we were kids, people had one dog. And if it passed away, it might be 6 months later, we got one dog. People, they didn't have multiple dogs. I mean, it was rare. I think now in most families seem to have multiple dogs. And I think it's a subconscious reaction to the artificial world because that dog has nothing to do with it and won't. Other than you see dogs online, they can present it to you. They can develop the salivating for it. But still, that's real, and it's just not part of that world, and it won't be. And I think there's been a human reaction to all these people now and look at COVID. I mean, immediately turned to dogs. The COVID dog was a thing. It's humans. We crave that something real. So we'll be the pirates out in the open sea. The falconers still, and but yeah, will there be places left to do it? Probably better figure out urban stuff.
Well, that's the running joke. I mean, I've already had that as part of one or two of these other conversations with some of your pals this weekend so far, and that already made the. If you don't love it already, you better start loving starlings and squirrels as Corey, because eventually, that's what we're going to mostly have. And yeah, I mean that joke gets made a joke that's not really honestly a joke, but the sentiment gets made often, very often. But no, I mean, like I said, I was curious. I was curious though what your thoughts were, and I'm kind of glad the conversation kind of migrated more towards this, because it was something I was going to ask you about anyway. And to that end, not just from the purely art side of things, but I mean, do you play at all anymore? I mean,
just entertaining myself or at my daughter's weddings. Look at this guy.
Yeah.
I still, and with ex-bandmates, I'm still,
What was your go-to brand that you like to play?
I'm a Tama guy.
Tama guy.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, because, so when I was in college, Stuart Copeland, Kenny Aronoff were all on Tama, and the strongest name in drums. And they came out, and there was a catalog that a bunch of these almost like Art Deco airbrush stylized. No, it was 1986, 1987, and I was just, oh, yeah. So I've been a Tama guy. So I've got a big set of blue babingas, African wood.
That's what my bases are made of.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Babinga pomele, and babinga, swirly babinga, actually. Yeah.
Recording, we know it colors everything, but the first time I hit those things, I was like, oh, that hard,
deep,
that floor tom.
Super resonant.
Yeah, because I had maple kits up at the end, and I was like, yeah. And then Tom had to go away from it because they said, no more, and they somehow found another different kind of source, so they're back to doing that kind of stuff. So for a while, I thought, my drums are going to shoot up. Not that I ever would sell them. It's just when they're up in the exercise room. So every once in a while I get a wild hair, start playing before I, do some exercise or anything like that. But yeah, I would like playing in a band, but it's kind of like golf. I know I'd have to put a lot of time in to be good again. And I don't, with falconry and multiple jobs and
It's a constant on again, off again, love-hate relationship. It's another one of those things for me too in my life.
Are you playing?
Yes and no. I'm kind of in between projects almost always, and but that being said, one of the projects that I've been involved in the last 6 or 7 years finally looks like we might be able to finally get some stuff done and recorded. So I've kind of learned with this, with music stuff and like a lot of other things, it's the whole marathon, not a sprint type thing. If you really want quick success or quick instant gratification, especially when you have to rely on other people to help you get that to the finish line,
as bass players and drummers know.
Yeah, you're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment if you're expecting a quick turnaround on any kind of investment, as you know. So.
Yeah. Who's the YouTuber, the bass guy? Slap at the bass. Do you know what I'm talking? He's Italian.
I don't know. There's so many. He's got
a huge fall, and it's so funny because it's bass, and I know everyone, and he plays bass solos, but can he solo? And he doesn't take himself serious, and it is hysterical. And he goes slap, and he does whoosh, and it's super corny. But he's Italian. He lives in the United States. He's married to a Japanese girl of all things, and he's taught her bass. So they'll duet, a duet bass solo.
Huh, okay.
There you go. How about that? But playing in bands for years, they'd always say this: everyone wants a non-weird bass player.
Do those exist?
Yeah, yeah. But I can tell you definitely not. But and I would bring it up to him. I go, "Oh, you were right," because we'd go through. Like one time, we're at a gig, and we were taking a break, and our bass player is over at the table in front of people, stuffing food into his pockets. And finally, people are stopping eating, just watching. I think it was a wedding, and they're just watching this. And my guy looks at me and goes, bass players. And it's kind of funny. Drummers, we only don't suffer as bad a rap because bass players. But here's the thing. I was playing the bass before I switched to drums to please my parents because it was drums. But I finally said, okay, I'll play bass. And finally, after a year, I said, please, I'm a drummer. And yeah, they let me switch. But of course, drummers love bass players. But it's by nature of the beat. I mean, you got to be a little different to be drawn to the bass. You got to be
right. Yeah, you've got to be weird to be drawn to like what's considered the most irrelevant and and non-essential aspect of any band. That's
this was cool. I don't know if you've seen this for bass players. My algorithm fed me a YouTube, and there was a survey on drummers from amateurs who played quite a bit to pros, and a personality test. Oh shit. I'm like, if there was 9 traits, I was there for like 7.5 of them. And that surprised me. Again, I keep thinking, I don't know if you have this observation. Falconry, there's definitely one thing that totally stands out to me. There is a way, way off the scale percentage of artists that are falconers.
Of course, yeah.
Even guys that don't even consider themselves artists have... I think someone should really do a scientific paper on it for a thesis. It is without a doubt way more than the.
I've had this conversation many times also.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my best answer, anecdotal, that I've come up with, again, the aesthetics. Birds of prey. You look at a bird of prey, they're just. Like the Arab culture, they like horses, fast dogs, falcons, and sports cars. Everything that looks fast standing still. And raptors have a look compared to any other bird that's sleek, menacing, fast. And I think instantly artists are drawn to that. So I think that's the link, but I'm not, because it's not socioeconomic or that physically art has anything to do with if you're a successful falconer or not. There's no bridge there.
Yeah. Well, like you said, these creatures are living pieces of art, and dealing with them is an art form. And so it only makes sense that people that are artistically, whichever, side of the brain, sure, yeah, there's more science and whatever bass guys that do just fine too or whatever, but yeah, I think there's just naturally
Steve Lehman.
Yeah. there's very naturally it's just this natural inclination for people that are kind of just that side of the brain oriented to be attracted to this sport, just because of all the intangibles, I think. Mm-hmm. And I completely and totally am on the same page with you on that, because I've had that conversation a lot of times with different guys, and I was joking also with with Rob too, and he was just like, I really want to know where you kind of like get your founding, or your the basis for your theory on that too is. But when I brought it up, and I said, well, I think diagnosed or undiagnosed, I think there's a lot of falconers that are kind of a little on the spectrum too, in a lot of ways as well. And I think that there's a lot of OCD aspects of what we do as well. And I of course don't bring that up to offend anybody or make people think about anything in particular, but like I've noticed that I know that there's aspects of me. I've never been officially diagnosed with anything, but there are certain things that I know about myself that if someone analyzes me enough, of course they say, almost anybody now, if you analyze them enough, anybody can end up on a part of the spectrum or whatever.
Yeah.
But
like a horoscope.
Yeah, but yeah, I know. There. It seems like I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people now, and I totally can. And
I'm not aware. I'm sure. Are there any truly autistic falconers out there?
I don't know.
Here's a scary thing. Of course, we've got to find out what's causing it, because it's off the charts. So, out of my son's mouth, the marriage and family therapist in Denver, there was a time, and he's just getting going in his practice and all that. When he turned to us and just matter-of-factly said, "Yeah, I deal mostly with adolescent autistic boys," and I'm like, do you hear yourself? We didn't even know what it was when I was a kid. And the studies now are proving, no, it's not just because we're aware.
Yeah.
They've just proven that, because They made states re-audit everything, and maybe over decades they missed like one person.
Sure.
But it keeps whatever. But that's a whole nother subject.
Sure,
but,
sure.
But I only bring it up because there's so many. I mean, that was literally a niche in his practice, and I couldn't. I mean, it was so sad to hear that. I'm glad he's helping them, and they like dealing with another male because it's dominated by women in the field. So he's got But at the same time, it was just like wow.
Regardless, it's another one of those things that you can always just kind of stop, think about, analyze, and just kind of wonder. I guess
I would wonder the bird's idiosyncrasies would, if I said that right, would drive maybe them a little. Why aren't you doing? Why is this happening today when that didn't?
Well, and part of the reason what my theory is on that too is there's just something about falconry that always brings out the most obsessive aspects of people, and one
word.
And not only that, but people that are easily hyper focused on something, and which is a big reason why also a lot of your ADHD people do really well, because I mean they and I know I know for a fact there's a lot of ADHD people in this sport.
Okay.
By their own admission.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. We can with this once again, not getting off on a whole other tangent, but it's another one of those kind of weird food for thought kind of deals. But I don't know. You're kind of like going back to what you said, though. It would be an interesting kind of grad study for someone to, take a poll and just really.
And it sounds self-serving because we're falconers, but yet you go, and if if anybody's not in falconry, listen to this. You go to a gathering, you realize so many different walks of life are in this rather bizarre. There's so many reasons not to do it, and yet we've got to do it, and we see ourselves miserable if we couldn't. I mean, chain me up and, I don't want to see life without it. And so just interesting. What's the common thread? Of course there's variables, but as the famous falconer Dale Thorsman famously said, exceptions prove one thing. There's exceptions. I always love that because everyone brings up exceptions and then you can dismiss it. Of course there's exceptions. Next subject.
Right.
But I think there's common threads. And to me, it's interesting just because our chosen obsession is so left of field and difficult and challenging, and there's something, and again, why are they born and not made? Because I came up with that statement because before I even had kids, I watched so many falconers, children not be falconers. Yeah. My kids, my son loves duck hunt. Most in Oklahoma, for whatever, most of them, the boys, they're duck gun hunters. They like the social aspect of it. I mean, I don't have to sell duck hunting, but they like the social aspect of it. It's still hunting. They can work on their craft. It's not as difficult as a bird. It's the smart way. I mean, they invented gunpowder for a reason. But most of them are duck gun hunters. If they dabble in falconry, I bet you it didn't last 2 years. Most of them don't even broach it. And you say to yourself, well, is it that they don't want to compete with dad? Maybe. Do they know how the sausage gets made? Maybe a lot. They see it enough, so it's not forbidden fruit. It's not exotic. Familiarity breeds contempt. All those reasons. But by and large, my experience, it's the rare guy whose kid's into falconry. So again, that folds into falconers are born and not made, because that's how you make one. Grow up in a falconry family. Like I did dog shows with my daughter, and doesn't take, you can't swing a dead cat. They're all related to, oh, that's my daughter and their daughter's doing it and the son's doing it and the nephew's doing it. Yeah, it's kind of like gypsies. They're related. It's a gypsy life, and they're all kind of, there's a family thing, and my mind's going, yeah, falconry's not this way at all.
These animals require too much specificity and a certain type of personality for this to be geared towards the majority versus the minority. for sure. But
and all the more interesting reason to study it.
Yeah.
I think someone should do would you start with psychology, I guess, with the why falconry? It could be anything, but anything. Golf, I could get the reasons for it. It's challenging, variable ratio. We're all addicted to that. Boy, is that falconry or what? The variable ratio. But at the same time, it's athletic, but it's not athletic. There's no running involved. No one's playing defense. My definition of a sport is if someone's in a different uniform trying to stop you what you're doing, and there's some form of running involved. It doesn't mean, so to me, it is a sport versus an activity. I mean, archery doesn't mean it's not damn hard. I just don't think it's a sport. Mm-hmm. There's no running involved, and there's no defense. So auto racing, maybe a guy blocking you a little bit, but golf, there's no running involved. So anyway, it doesn't make it less. I just don't think it's a sport. Falconry, you could argue it's a sport because nature is trying to stop us from being successful. That thing's flying for its life and our bird's flying for dinner.
And we do have to run occasionally.
Oh boy, yeah. I've asked Robert Huber. I've about killed him a few times. Those peregrines will stay in the air a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a really fun conversation. I'm glad we got a chance to actually nerd out a little bit. That's something that I knew whenever I listened to your last episode that you and Israel did, I knew that if I would ever get a chance to do one of these with you myself, that there would be at least probably about approximately 30 minutes of just nerdery. And that's been a lot of fun to have. So
yeah, I have a lot of interest, and that's probably prevented me from being great at anything, but I just Popeye, I am what I am.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, so
exactly.
A lot of varied stuff. Well, I hope I kept up with everyone else you've interviewed today, and
sure, yeah,
I enjoyed it. It's great, and talking to a fellow Hoosier. And by the way, I got to throw this out. When I came to University of Tulsa first time in Oklahoma, 35% of the students were from St. Louis. Oddly enough. So we were surrounded, but 35% of anything at a college campus is a lot.
So you came from so all these people only knew Hoosier as a derogatory term.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were, we were around Arkansas girls. I thought I was on the set of Hee Haw. I'd never heard y'all in my life. I never, literally, and I was just, wow, I was fascinated. And then when the word like hick would come up or anything, the Missouri people.
Oh, he's a Hoosier.
Hoosier.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
So whenever I worked for about a year in St. Louis doing neonatal pediatric transport, I was working at it was one of the bigger hospitals in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And a couple of the nurses that I worked with.
He's a Hoosier.
Yeah, it's like, man, God, that guy is such a Hoosier.
Instead of hillbilly.
And I'm looking at him.
Like,
I'm like, you realize that like Indiana, like Hoosier is like the.
It's like saying you're a Buckeye. You're from Ohio,
right? Exactly. I mean, and so I'm like, what do you even? And so I'm kind of an analyzer personality, or very much an analyzer personality. So I had to just kind of wait, and I wanted a small sample size so as to see if I could figure out what the hell they were referring to, in what context they were using this word, right? And finally, I just couldn't. I had to finally ask. I was just like, "Do you all even know what reference you're making whenever you say someone is a Hoosier? Like, do you even know really what that means?" And they're like, "Well, it just kind of means that they're kind of like, like white trash or like a redneck or
hillbilly,
something, or whatever."
Redneck, right? You hick, yeah.
And I'm like, well, you do realize that everybody from Indiana is technically a Hoosier, right? But like, what separates the connotation in your mind? Did you even know that? Whatever. And they're like, well, I don't, and they never could give me a straight answer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It still remains a mystery to this day to me.
Same. And you're one of the few people I've ever brought it up to that knows exactly
what you're talking about. Yeah.
Everyone just shrugs. But again, it's their word for hick, redneck.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's such a Hoosier. I'm like, what? I mean, Indiana, we do not. I mean, the Indiana Hoosiers, the main school in the state.
Exactly.
And for those listening who aren't Hoosiers, we don't even know what a Hoosier is.
No.
It is a legend. There's even a thing about there was somebody visiting from out of state. There was a bar fight. A guy's ear gets cut off, and someone picked it up and said, "Whose ear?" And they think that possibly, and he went home and he wrote about it, and a Hoosier, and it developed. I mean, I think that's so fantastical that it's not true, but no one knows the source of it. So it is so out of left field that we understand where Okie comes from. When the grapes of the migration west during the Dust Bowl and they ended up in California. Well, it's short for Oklahoma. He's an Okie. And it kind of became this term. And as I learned through Ken Burns' country music documentary, which I don't even like, I don't know about you, I don't like country music, but that documentary is so good. I watched it 3 times. It is the story of America. It's amazing. You find out how I do like Dwight Yoakam, even though I don't like much country. Why he came from Bakerfield? Because Bakerfield's full of Okies. That's where they ended up. So we all get where Okie, you understand it, but Hoosier, it doesn't have any kind of, and for them to reach several states over, because people in Illinois don't use it like that.
No,
not at all.
No, it's just people from like St. Louis and just like kind of central or eastern, like Missouri.
Yeah. It's the strangest.
Yeah. No, and I'm so happy to finally meet at least one other person also, or at least have a conversation with them that knows what I'm talking about as well, because that has been one of the more perplexing things that I've run into. Just, I still remember I was sitting in the office. I mean, the nurse that I was teammates with that particular day, she's like, this guy he was just such a Hoosier. Uh-huh. I still remember exactly the same conversation the whole night. I'm just like, what the hell are you doing?
As our culture becomes homogenized, it's kind of nice to discover something so specific because you don't hear it anywhere else.
No.
I'm thinking, okay, I'm in Oklahoma. It's the St. Louis people. Maybe I'm going to hear from Oklahoma people about, which would be kind of rich, but nowhere else. Texas, Kentucky, nowhere. Michigan, nowhere else. St. Louis.
Yeah.
Hoosier.
Yeah.
And they were all obsessed with OP, where Ocean Pacific. When I got there, I was like, you all think you're from California. Oh, the corduroy OP shorts and the Ray-Ban. They were all so into California. They have their own water polos played in the high school. They play water polo. I thought that was the oddest thing. Yeah, it's kind of, they've got a thing there. And I was a school with a ton of kids from Dallas. It wasn't that quirky, no, we don't play water polo. We don't say Hoosiers. It's more like Indiana. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, once again, I'm happy to have had this conversation with somebody else that can appreciate just the perplexities of such things and the conundrums and whatnot. But well, I mean, I do want to end on a piece of advice, though. I mean, we've already shared some stories and things like that. But I mean, I always like to end now with a piece of advice from whoever I'm on with, for current or even prospective, generations or groups of falconers and stuff. And, if there's any kind of sentiment or thought or, whatever, that you think is worth noting, and, we can probably call this good. So. Oh,
that I would give advice to someone?
Yeah. Piece of, favorite piece of advice or sentiment
Well, I would go back to what I think, made me not completely suck at this heartbreaking sport is I was fortunate enough to be around good falconers, be observant, be around falconers that you might not want to be around because you'll see things that'll reinforce, they do this and this guy doesn't do that. So my observational skills helped me with cliff notes, so to speak, to get better quickly because I watched the good falconers and I watched the poor ones and I discerned what was going on as best as I could. And I could see, these guys do this, but it's not sexy at all. But typical, most things you get out of it what you put into it. So if you're not half-assing it, and you're sincere about your efforts and you're around good people that have done it before you, don't reinvent the wheel. People have figured this stuff out before you. People, they're not idiots. So, and be around and observe and watch, and you'll glean it almost by osmosis. But of course, there's no shortcuts. Put the time in. So pretty basic stuff.
Well, I think that's a good note to end on. And once again, I've enjoyed having this conversation with another fellow Hoosier.
Couple Hoosiers. Thank you, John.
And I appreciate you, man. Thanks for making the trip down today. And I'm glad we got to nerd out for a bit.
Fist bump. Boom. Okay.